Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for returning for our second session on the Cosmology of Peace offered by our Dominican Sister of Peace, Barbara Harrington. So I'm going to shut off the slides. Barbara, yes?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay. Um, okay. Okay. So Barbara, it's all yours.
Okay, great. Well, I'm thrilled to be back with everyone. It's really, really wonderful to be present among you all and to be present with you all at once. The friends of the sisters, the associates, the sisters, and to share energy, doubts, any kind of bewilderment, and the sparks of creativity that are arising that actually make all things new. I'd like to just say something about the Sisters of St. Dominic of Amityville, if I could. I assume that also kind of spirals out to associates and friends. But the thing about the Dominican Sisters of Amityville is that you have always been open to the curvature, the larger curvature of space-time relationships. The universe is driven by relationships. And you've always been open to the larger curvature of that relationship. And this kind of undulating, active presence in the universe, expressing its powers and habits as Long Island, you're very much yourselves while falling in love with everyone else and holding close and opening to new creativity as a vocation. You have not lost a jot or a tittle of who it is to be who you deeply are. And you haven't spent your energy or squandered your energy so that it just kind of fizzles out and becomes putrid. I think that your openness, your embracing, you're centered. So the structure holds. The structure of love that you've created holds. And I think that that's really one of the wonderful gifts that you give to the rest of us. And I want to say that because um, you know, you really have had to deal with the tension of forces in many ways. And it's that tension of forces that we learned last week that really bring forth splendor. The splendor of your souls, the splendor of your presence. And it's never, ever the same. You kind of make room for each other in very beautiful ways. And you can kind of see that there's no cookie cutters in your kitchen. You have become responsive, as responsive as the sea, responsive to the bay. And all of you island dwellers tend to have a bioregional love detected in your accents, a dynamic lure of water, as Carol Johnson, who's one of Jean's friends, Sister of Charity. And personally, I just want to say, I'm so grateful to have washed up on your shore.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. It's been a joy of my life to be associated with you all. So, besides all the headlines and news items that suffering friends and families and shopkeepers who claim our attention these days, I have to say I've been kind of rolling around like a child in a leaf pile this week, celebrating the 111th birthday celebration of Thomas Berry, the opening of COP 30, attended by brilliant young Catholic scientists and heads of NGOs. To hear them speak is thrilling. And of course, for me, up here in the place I am in Massachusetts, it's the trees. You know, that lone apple hanging high on the ancient tree in the meadow, along with a coverlet of maple and ginkgo and birch and pine needles, while oak leaves, and I'm sure it happens where you are too, hang on twirling in fierce winds as though they're in a talent competition for Cirque du Soleil. But I also think that these leaves are crinkling angels, watching over our world with excessive love, vigilant in pain too, for the love of the world. For we're called today to swirl these prayers for the world into the larger contemplative embrace of truth revealed by your bioregion, your ministries, and your concern worldwide. This larger contemplative embrace of truth. Just hold that for a second. Years ago, Margaret sent a poem of Rilke to our community of Crystal Spring in Massachusetts. It kind of touched us all deeply, and there was a kind of a competition for us to put, it was written out in her own hand, to kind of put that card like near our computers. So we all took turns and then just grabbed it from everybody's desk anytime we needed it. So I've asked her to offer this poem now to all of us, wrapped in the presence that we participate in right now, that is full of sorrow, full of pain, and actually leaks joy. Look, you should see your faces. You're leaking joy, girlfriends. So let's take a breath or two, gathering the windswept, news-glutted prayers of our lives into a big pile of autumn leaves, generously raked together for children to delight in, for microbes to spread out in, and all over our land, incubating bioregional expressions of the dream of the earth. So Margaret, anytime you're ready.
Okay. This is called Onto a Vast Plain by Rilke. You're not surprised at the force of the storm. You've seen it growing. The trees flee. Their flight sets the boulevards streaming. And as you know, now you must go out into your heart as onto a vast plain. Now the immense loneliness begins. The days go numb. The wind sucks the world from your senses like withered leaves. Through the empty branches, the sky remains. It is what you have. Be earth now, an evensong. Be the ground lying under that sky. Be modest now, like a thing ripened until it is real, so that he who began it all can feel you when he reaches for you.
Thank you, Margaret. So as we begin, there may be ideas from last week's time together about Thomas's vision that you want to question or critique or comment on or plump up or fill out or help us to digest. Are there any comments that critiques, criticisms, questions? We don't have to have them, but just if they were
Yeah,
to be present,
I
it's
would
good
just
to
say,
answer them.
yeah, it's been with me all week, this chapter. And there's something about it that makes me realize more and more how we resist the way the world is, the way the universe is. Um, and we we've created, you know, and a lot of it has to do with pain and suffering. We do want a paradise without that. And the earth is and the universe are telling us no, paradise includes suffering. Somehow suffering is good, is creating life. So that's a whole new perspective that we humans, I think, we don't like that idea. Well, because we don't like suffering. And so I've just been with that all week, just plumbing over and over.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom in accepting the universe just as it is, with all its, I mean, when you put, Barb, when you put up, or Margaret, I don't know who put up that screen, but it's so beautiful. And that's the way we want it, but then there are parts of it, I'm sure, that it's very cold and it's dark. So it just says to me, accept all life, accept all of life the way it is. And I think that's a deep wisdom that Thomas had. And when you asked us, he wrote this in I think you said 88, or.
Yeah, it was.
And it's so relevant for today's problem. So I just think, we move forward together, and Barb, you for choosing this particular chapter, because it is, I think, one of the hardest chapters that Thomas has to completely embrace and understand.
Yeah. When you mentioned that last week, Jean, I was thinking about how he doesn't pull punches here.
Yeah.
This is a remarkable critique without demonizing. And, that's just what it is. And I guess my question around this whole thing is that one of the things that is present in all of these reflections about a new story, the question always comes up, what is what story would have written suffering out from? What is the story that goes from, as Miriam Trace McGillis would say, that goes from bliss to bliss? You know, what is that story? And what was its purpose? Without demonizing it, what was that story, and what this resistance, this, you know, this deep suffering that people went through, that story persisted.
Oh, you mean that wants to eliminate suffering?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're suffering here, you know, on the earthly plane, is either something wrong with you, you did something wrong, or, you know, or there's sin in the world, and sin produced all this suffering.
Yeah.
You know, and we need to be redeemed out of it. And Thomas has some great wisdom to say that we need an incarnational approach, and to take a look at all this redemptive activity that we have and see if it's wise to keep that, to keep the focus on being on a sinful humanity, being a sinful presence. It's this, some of this stuff is gorgeous. So I do want to, I guess that's a pretty appropriate question then, Jean, not only question, but reflection on our world, the planet, being dependent on human decision.
Mhm.
Because last week, I think we talked about that the human intrusion into the natural functions of the land happened during the Neolithic period, like about 60,000 years ago. So we've had plenty of practice on this, right? It's kind of in our genes.
Yeah.
And it's the settlements that were created during that time controlled water and soil as well as women's lives. And that is the upshot of agriculture, that the agricultural period. And with that came, as we went on in successive years, that there was a conquest mentality that was coextensive with what civilization was all about. This, we were held together, and we're being asked to hold on to kind of an inquiry into that confluence of the this incredible conquest of land and conquest of peoples and their lands, as identifying human activity. And it's been really the dominant theme of the planet. And it also makes that conquest mentality kind of a given. Like, where is it not in our genes? Those of us from the West, at least. And it even in the expression of the planet coming to a more complete expression of itself, what it talks about is the survival of the fittest. And it's almost kind of an inevitability. We expect the survival of the fittest because that's what we've all grown into. And so instead of thinking about it as cooperative or peoples and beings themselves yearning for a fuller expression of their lives. That's where violence and conflict resides. We get this thing like there has to be winners and losers. And so I'd like to go back just once again. And remember last week when we held, the survival of the fittest in tension with the disequilibrium and tension of forces and creativity, those three movements. I'd like to go back to that again, but this time, instead of kind of feeling the heft of them, the invitation this week is to imagine tasting the difference between them. So I'd like you, as well as myself, just to take survival of the fittest, put it in your mouth, twirl your tongue around it, get some saliva in there, and then just quietly see how it rests in our mouths and if there's a taste to it. And just take a couple of minutes to do this. Gail Wassello from the Green Mountain Monastery says that it's now important in this period of our lives to kind of burst the bubble of doubt that has any significance, because we're so heady about these things. So just try that out for a bit. And then take it out of your mouth. And replace it with the gum, the bubble gum, the cannoli of disequilibrium, tension of forces, and creativity. Put that mouthful inside and see if you can taste that. And please don't worry if you can't. These are spiritual exercises that are difficult. They involve a major change of our relationship to beings, to ideas, and to an intimate felt sense. So don't worry about it. Just kind of try it when you can, because it actually deepens us and widens our embrace, cleanses our intelligence of its superiority, and introduces our hearts to new stories, and entices a willingness to go deeper and to become good food ourselves for God. So does anybody want to venture a sense of what this spiritual exercise was like for her?
I know when
Denise?
I go outside, since last week, I normally just run in somewhere. You don't think of what's going on. But I don't like to go out in the cold, but I go out anyway. And when I went out, all the wind is making cyclones of the leaves blowing around. And when the little girls on the block goes, look, my hair, and his hair was straight up. I said, oh, that's the wind talking to you. So she goes, what? I said, the wind is talking to you. What do you hear? So she goes, rattling. I said, well, you could take the leaves and do something positive with them. She goes, what? I said, well, you see in my garden, I put the leaves down. It brings new life for next year. So then I made this silly little thing out of a leaf for her and I painted eyes on it. And you cut it in 3 pieces and you fold it down and put it on the stem. And if you pull the stem, it looks like a dog doing his ears, wagging his ears. So she goes, how'd you do that? I said, you saw me. I'm just standing here doing it. She goes, you always find something to do. I said, well, this is nature. It's not just garbage. It's not just leaves. I said, think about it. So today when I saw her, she goes, the leaves kept me awake all night.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I said, what do you mean? She goes, she goes, I saw what you were doing the other day and with my hair was up straight and you made that little dog and the leaves on my window. I said, see, you were aware of it. Other times we don't think about it. We just run out of the house and get in the car or go up and down the block, whatever we do. I said, but if we take it in, it's all part of creativity. So she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, everything is made for a purpose. I said, so these leaves have a purpose, just like the sun and the stars. I said, if the sun is not as warm some days, she goes, yeah, it's cold now. I said, well, it'll be back in 100 some odd days. It'll be spring. 128 days, it'll be spring. So she said to me, I can't wait. I said, me neither. I hate the cold. But, it just makes you aware. And if you could tell the kids to, like you just said, suck it in and taste it. When you go out, I taste the leaves rustling. That's how I just.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I found the first part, it felt like chewing thorns.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
it was not pleasant, obviously. The second part, I didn't quite do what you said because a memory came. When I was very young, my sister and I went on a long walk this street in Brooklyn. I don't even remember the name of it, but there was a bus terminal there, so it was a very long block. And in the middle of the block, there was a gum machine. You put in a penny or so,
Penny
and you
more.
got gum, got a piece of gum. And so we each got a piece of gum, and we were asking my father to blow bigger bubbles.
Mhm.
And he said, this is a little gross, so excuse me. So he said, well, I can't blow any bigger bubbles because I only have a little bit of gum. So we had passed the gum machine by this. So my sister and I took the gum out of our mouth and gave it to him. And he chewed and he made this huge bubble and it just popped, and that's what I thought of. That's what came to me when you talked about creativity. This big bubble just popping, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, you got some tension of forces there,
yes.
really. Did anyone else want to speak? The reason that, one of the reasons that taste came to mind while I was preparing this is that we very seldom get a chance in these kinds of spiritual exercises to exercise the sense of taste. And it's really quite critical in many, many ways, because the foods we're eating and are almost consumed mindlessly
Mhm.
and consumed preferentially. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not eating that. Or when we shop for preference often. And food becomes a commodity and not a gift. And that begins to color our feeling and our taste for disaster. Thomas Berry talks about Earth is poised for disaster, which is calling for a change in perspective. And, Teilhard also says, if without a vision, the people will perish. And our new perspective, if Earth is to survive in its functional capacity, needs to engage agriculture in a totally new way. And it's exciting to think about it as what became the conquest and the robber baron, agriculture, what that became, when actually it's an incredible metaphor for how the universe works. And we somehow had some sense of that as in Christian faith, and Jesus had some sense of that at the Last Supper. Eat his body, drink his blood, what's that? But we take it now, and we take it not lightly at all, but we take it as something that's normative. And eating puts us into deep, deep communion with everything. And I think the planet now that has become capable of self-destruction in its major life systems through human agency, because we are Earth, as Margaret was urging us on in that prayer of Rilke, be Earth now, be Earth now, be Earth now. And we are Earth. We are Earth in our decision making. And so we have become not only the self-conscious presence of our planet, we're also the self-reflective consciousness of the universe. So the choice is ours, Thomas says, peril or promise. What is ours to do? And in that context, where everything is basically up for grabs, failure in creativity, that's why these tasting exercises are good to to promote that, to get some saliva around. Failure in creativity would be absolute failure, which cannot be remedied later by a larger success. That's right from the book. So it's failure in our creativity would be absolute failure. And our creativity cannot be directed toward bovine placidity, where everything is going from bliss to bliss. It's not going to cut it. And so Thomas says that a completely new type of creativity is needed. And the creativity, and this is hard for us to hear and very hard for us to live into, creativity must have as its primary concern the survival of Earth in its functional integrity. That's what creativity is all about. And instead of nations fighting one another, these interhuman conflicts, what takes precedence is the survival of Earth in its functional integrity. And I think, and I don't know you intimately enough to know this, but you already know that. The Sisters of St. Dominic of Amityville already know that. The creativity must have as its primary concern, not the survival of the Dominican order, not the survival of the church, but the survival of Earth in its functional integrity. Because without that, nothing else is going to be possible. And the question is, how do we put our programs, our lives, our institutions to that purpose? To elicit, to promote, to foster creativity that has as its primary concern the survival of Earth, which includes us. But when we often do our work for humans only, we forget the magnitude of the problem of the land on which we stand. And we talk about, this is the other thing that Thomas doesn't exactly address, but he talks about it as if we can do that, if we can put our creativity to the survival of the planet, then if we can get our minds around that and know that the diatoms that are in the African, there's a great bowl of Africa in the Sahara, a great bowl of dust where diatoms are taken up by the currents of Atlantic and swept over here. Even, just even using the words, I know I'm wrong, swept over to this continent, so that here is not this spot, is not necessarily this place, because Africa is here too. We're eating Africa. It's in our farmlands. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. It's just the way the planet works, that here is not a spot. Here is a presence. Here is a presence. And if that is so, the question for me at this time is, how can we say someone doesn't belong? How can we dictate where someone belongs when what we're eating is replenishing land from all over the planet. And since the Earth functions as an absolute unity, any dysfunctioning of the planet imperils every nation on the planet. And those words, I'm reading these words right up here from Thomas Berry. And so my question is, does this reality elicit the highest state of tension we earthlings can creatively hold? Because Thomas says that that really is our greatest, I want to say place, but you know what I mean, our greatest instructor of creativity. To be in the highest state of tension we earthlings can creatively hold. This is going to take years to unpack. As Jean said, it's his most challenging, and because it just lays it out. And you know, and there's no patting ourselves on the back with this. Even though we're like, ooh, what's happening in the world, what's happening in the United States, this trying to save the United States. We really can't pat ourselves on the back, because all of this is what we humans, as Thomas says, it's what we humans do best. If we can understand ourselves as the self-reflective consciousness of Earth, of the planet, and if we can begin to understand that the howl of the wolf, the cry of the mother polar bear, is calling us back into our own creativity. The poles are melting, the ice is melting, and we scramble to put higher barriers. When we really need to activate a creativity that answers to the peril of every nation on the planet. So at issue is number one, to see the human as an integral member of the Earth community. Integral. Not some lordly being free to plunder the Earth for human utilities. That's what Thomas says. Free to plunder the Earth for human utility. And two, to see the interhuman tensions secondary to Earth-human tensions. He says it's not a question of whether nations can survive each other, nor whether intelligent beings can survive the natural forces of the planet. It's whether the planet can survive the intelligence that it has brought forth. In other words, can Mother Earth survive the decisions of her human progeny? And so I'd like to just take a moment to put us into breakout groups, right, Margaret?
Angela, how many are we?
We're 12 people.
Okay.
So do
Then
you want
two groups of
two?
6. Yeah.
2 groups of 6?
Is that okay?
Yeah. And the question is, if creativity must take as its primary concern the survival of Earth in its functional integrity, taking precedence over whether intelligent beings can survive the natural forces of the planet. Where do we find ourselves? It goes back to Jean's insight. We do not want to suffer. And the question is, in our decision-making capacity to promote creativity, whose primary concern is the survival of Earth in its functional integrity, will our suffering, as we anticipate it, overpower our creativity? Will our suffering overpower our creativity? And it's anticipatory suffering. Could be a heck of a lot of delight in it. So let's get into groups. And how many minutes did you say, Margaret?
Well, let's see, it's 7:22 now. You want to say 15 minutes?
Let's come back in 10. How about 10?
Okay, 10.
Because we can
Okay.
do 6 and 6, okay?
Okay.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so just hit the join button. Okay,
All right.
it's all yours.
Okay. Does anyone want to lift up anything that was said in her group? Well, I'm just looking at the time. I will proceed with this if that's okay with folks.
Okay.
Okay. One of the things that Thomas says, and he's so brave in putting this out, but he also knows deeply in himself, not just the cost of this, but the way forward. That's the hopeful thing about this whole article, is that he says his proposal is that the cosmology of peace is basically the present issue, and we must take on our cosmological role, which is the universe must be seen in its human manifestation. So we need to start finding ways to see ourselves as more than our own personal selves. Not the powers of the universe, but the dimensions of the universe come in our own singularities. So we must do what is ours to do. But it also comes in differentiation, that there's a world of differentiation out there. Yearning for communion, which is the third aspect. And that's a beautiful thing to think about, that not only we humans, but everything participates in those three aspects to show itself, to come to its full expression. And it will never be the same in each era, never be the same in each era. But it's like, having a gumball machine when Margaret was, 60 years ago. and our capacity to laugh at it, but we don't have those gumballs on each corner right now for fathers and daughters to play around and be entertained by the generosity of themselves around that. We don't have that anymore. But we really need to get into this cosmological context, and it's never been clearer right than it is now, when everything depends on a creative resolution of our present antagonisms, as Thomas talks about it. And I wonder if not our present faith context could provide some way through this, because we are urged to put on the mind of Christ. What if we put on the mind of the cosmic Christ? The way we've learned about Jesus is that, he came to save humans. However, give me a gospel story that doesn't have nature in it. That's where we have come from. And we have become the self-reflective beings of those places. And Jesus was like really the Christ, the cosmic Christ. And so what if we put on the mind of the cosmic Christ? What if we saw new saints around us? Because we have to go beyond human history and achievement, as fabulous as they are, and go into the universe and the universe ways of functioning. That's the cosmic Christ in our tradition. So in accord with, creative transformations through which all these splendid achievements of the universe have taken place, the situation is now in our hands. It's in human decision. And we need not despair. We really need not despair. So it's not really what it is how do we endure? How do we bear the enormous tensions that are presently afflicting our planet? Yeah.
In our group, when we were thinking about the question that you posed for the small groups, which we felt was really profound, okay, we went to Thomas's saying, the earth is primary and the human is derivative, as a way of trying to get into that question.
Thank you. That's
You
great.
know,
Thank you.
And then we talked about ecological conversion, which I think was John Paul II who first used that phrase, I think, okay?
Mhm.
And then others have picked it up, and of course it's in Laudato Si. But this is really hard. A friend of mine from the other side of the country told me a story recently about one of the sisters in their community who is in dementia. And someone went in to speak to her. And the sister said to her, is it the season of fall? And the person said, yes. And she said, please don't talk to me about letting go and about the leaves falling. and began to cry. So here's like a person in the midst of a disease, but who knows enough to know the radical letting go that she's really being faced with. She knows that yet. And she's looking at it square in the face. It's a profound letting go. And I think that's the same thing. We are so stuck on ourselves. And the last way we think about ourselves is derivative. So I think, Barbara, the way you've put this is, it's really very profound.
Well,
And you take it from the global level and take it down to the human level in the story I shared.
yeah. And I think, Margaret, is that, it harks back to last week when, the kind of the theme was, we will not be ungiven.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's because it's almost, see, the way Thomas describes us is really respectful in some ways, and it nobilizes us, because Thomas nests the human within the dynamic, mutually enhancing relationships inherent in the universe. We don't think of ourselves that way. And in the unfolding of galaxies and of planets, and before asserting this noble vocation of the human, which is to be Earth now within a community of life systems. What if we thought about our work that way? And it's almost 14 billion years of universe toil and ancestral outputting of life, and that has helped us to dwell as self-reflective consciousness as a dimension of Earth within a community of life that's nested in the universe. And as Thomas writes, we have no secure basis for understanding any aspect of the human if we can't accept that. And the way I see you all and my own congregation in many ways, all we have to do is just, I think, just take a deep breath and utter that prayer. I will not be ungiven.
Beautiful.
And the only way, and so that makes a huge dent in our identities. Huge dent in our identities. And it's not to deny faith or deny who we are. Relationality unfolding over eons into mutually evocative planetary relationships, creatively making something new. It's going to take thousands of years and a lot of giving, so that, in some ways, that word, I just love that word, that splendor, with the planet in its vibrancy, free to be wondered at, to be guided by. The divine will not be ungiven either. And we see it in Earth. You see it in the Bay. You see it, you're an island community. That takes courage, frankly. To be an island community. And, do we have time, Margaret, could you put on that, or Angie, can you put on that 18th slide?
Tell me what it looks like.
It's the two, it's the
Okay.
Milky Way galaxy and the Large Magellanic Cloud. You can put it on the side. You can just go down that. No, it's number 18, I think, in yours.
Okay. All right. Wait a minute. I got to go back here.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it this way.
Margaret, while you're saying that, I'm going to just speak to what happened when Angie put all those slides on tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Michael was sitting on her lap. He was not interested in anything she was saying. She put the slides on and that child lit up.
Yes.
Totally lit up. He became relational. He became excited. He was free to say what he thought. He was pretty exciting.
It was really striking.
Wasn't it striking?
It was striking.
Yeah. And it was magical for me. Okay, here we are, Margaret. That one before that? No, it's the two.
Two eyes looking at each other.
I hope I
Yeah.
can find it. Here.
That's it. That's it, Margaret.
Okay.
All right. The story of this, I doubt that this is
Whoops, it's on a timer, so it's going to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But get that image in your mind if you can, because this on the left-hand side of the screen is the Milky Way galaxy, and on the right-hand side is the Large Magellanic Cloud. And what we know about the Large Magellanic Cloud is that it suffered some kind of a trauma. Nobody knows exactly what it suffered, but it suffered, and it's the stars, the light started to just seep from it. And little by little, the whole galaxy was dying. And drifting into space, it drifted toward the Milky Way galaxy. And the Milky Way galaxy extended its long arm, one of its long arms, into the center of that galaxy. And some of the lights went on. And it took billions more years for that Large Magellanic Cloud to come alive. But it did. And now I believe it's called a proto-galaxy of the Milky Way. But it's just to say that magnificence, when we're doing what is ours to do, which is to be the self-reflective consciousness of Earth, and to endure and bear suffering in ways we had never, ever thought that would be possible, and we try to avoid it as much as we can, that can happen. Because relationality and mutually evocative, mutually enhancing relationships are endemic to the universe.
Barbara, could you repeat, please, what you said about this slide? Because I was busy trying to get it, about what happened.
Okay. Journey of the Universe,
Right.
page 24, 25.
Oh, okay. All right. Then you don't have to repeat it. I'll look it up.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's a beautiful, beautiful slide. And in fact, I managed to get a donor to have it in the hospital where I worked, to put it in the chapel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And for weeks it was up there without any explanation. People were fascinated. The traffic in the chapel, it tripled.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that amazing? It's not because it was a chapel. It's just that's the scope of my authority at that time. So it went into the chapel, but the traffic in the chapel tripled. And then I had no problem at all getting money to have the explanation up there. So we have it within us. We have this power of mutually enhancing relationships within us. And even though mutually, I don't know, destructive relationships are transactional relationships are taking the airwaves by storm these days. The suffering of the people and the suffering of the land,
Mm.
suffering of the waters is almost untellable. But I have the hope, and I really believe you do too, that we will not be ungiven. We will do our part in this so that, Michael can be stunned into activity, just as that galaxy stunned the Large Magellanic Cloud. And I would say it was actually kind of mutually enhancing. Don't you think, Angie and Margaret, while we were watching him, it was like, wait a second, we're trying to get this thing up and we're fascinated by this child.
Mm.
Yeah. Out of the mouth of babes, right?
Right.
Yes, yeah. And if you go on in this book, Thomas has 4 orientations in the last last 2.5 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we don't have time for it tonight, but Thomas has 4 orientations. And it would be really good to find a way to talk about it among yourselves, because it's all new. It's all new to all of us. And as Jean said, it's his most, in a way, it's his most prescient essay. And the conversion process of that man is sitting right here, right in these 6 pages. It's a beautiful meditation, a beautiful, beautiful meditation. And it begs the question, what do we want our times to be remembered for?
Mm.
Because the stakes have never been higher. And that's what Thomas also says. Don't think that this is small potatoes. It has never been done before. Never. We have never been at a place like this where everything is about to be destroyed. And I'd like to kind of end tonight with probably the last lines of the Earth Charter. So just kind of feast your eyes on this galaxy, awakening another galaxy that was dying, and evoked in it the potential that had died. It's not impossible. So let ours be a time remembered for the awakening of a new reverence for the mystery of being, gratitude for the gift of life, and humility for our human place in nature and the whole. So thank you all very much. This has been very enriching, and um, very challenging. And it's wonderful to have sister companions on the way.
Thank you, Barbara. This was wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah. What's left to say, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Crystal Spring is still alive and springing forth.
Yeah. Chris just got
Thank
a
you.
bunch of kudos, actually, too, from the Land Justice Committee.
Oh, did she?
Yes, the nuns, the women who used to be nuns and nuns.
Mm-hmm.
So that was.
Why don't you tell everyone who you're referring to, Carol?
You might,
Bob, I'm sorry.
you might know Chris Laughlin or heard of her. She was the director of Crystal Springs Center for Ecology, Spirituality, and Earth Learning. And one of the things that she did was to take on this unique ministry of working with congregations. It's called the Religious Lands Conservancy Project. You know, she got into their charism, she spoke of their charism, and for communities of women and men across the country to look at another way of reverencing and honoring their lands and their history by conserving land. And not just getting a one-time capital gains. And that was a ministry she really loved. And she worked it in the end with the young women who were at that point nuns and nuns, as they brought forth this land justice community project. And she was, if you knew her, you would know that she was a contemplative, a mystic, somebody who was brighter than the sun. And her depth of soul was, you began to understand what it meant when it said there's no bottom to that kind of depth.
Mm.
And she knew and she loved you, Margaret, and Jean, and really, really thought of you deeply as her sisters. And she spent a lot of time at Genesis Farm, and really kind of came alive
Mm.
with this new perspective of the
Yeah.
new story. She was a great storyteller too.
Mhm. And she passed quite suddenly, how many, 3 years ago now?
Yeah.
3 years ago, yeah. Well, Barbara, thank you so much for these wonderful, wonderful sessions.
Well, they were wonderful for me too, Margaret. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, my friend, be blessed. Thank you for blessing us.
Thank you
Okay.
for
Thank you,
blessing all.
Barbara, for opening our eyes to the unknown, to
Thank-
what to be what we can be,
Mm-hmm.
who we're meant to be.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
you're
Barbara.
most welcome. Thank you.
And maybe we'll all be back for Tehard.
I hope so.
Right.
Check
Yeah.
the website. It really will pick up a lot of what Barbara said about the cosmic Christ.
When is
Good.
this?
It's December.
Is it just your community?
No,
No.
no, it's
We move forward.
anybody
Yeah.
who wants to sign up for it. It's December 3rd, I think, and the 16th, or the 2nd and the 16th. If you check the website,
Okay.
It's going to be Kathy Duffy,
Oh,
and
great.
it's let me see, what did we call it? I can't even remember now. Living into Incarnation with Teilhard.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's Tuesdays, December 2nd and 16th from 6:30 to 8.
Okay.
So if
I'll
you go
send
on the
you the
website,
link.
yeah, you
Yeah,
could just
Barbara.
sign it. Thank
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right. God bless
Okay.
everybody.
God
Okay.
bless.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night,
All right.
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It was
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Night.
Good night.